the time of the year that children normally look forward to, although in one New Hampshire town, this holiday season was interrupted today by a terrifying email. It prompted yet another school district shut down because of fear. 12 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and 2 high schools in Nashua, New Hampshire were forced to close today over a, quote, detailed threat of violence. Now, as you may recall, it was just a week ago when the nation's 2 biggest school districts in New York City and in Los Angeles received similar threats. Let's bring in CNN correspondent Sara Ganim. Sara, police just held a news conference. What do we know now?
Yeah, Jake, what they said was while they took this threat very seriously and they still have an open investigation, they do not believe that there still remains a credible threat against the schools here, and they will reopen those schools tomorrow with an additional police presence for the safety of the students. Now, the details of that threat, the content, what was in it, was it similar to other threats that were made in other districts? As you mentioned, across the country in the last couple of days, they wouldn't talk about that, but take a listen to the superintendent of schools here explaining why they believe this was credible enough to shut down schools today.
The threat that we received yesterday was very specific. It was specific in terms of naming the 2 high schools by name where the action would occur. It was specific to today's date, saying today is the day that harm would be done to students. And it was specific to citing the means by which students would be harmed.
Now, as you heard them say, that they did take this very seriously, but as it remains today, they do not any longer believe that there is a credible threat to students. Jake?
And Sara, last week, as you know, the Los Angeles Unified School District, the 2nd largest school district in the nation, they shut down all their schools. There were similar threats, and the basic thinking was they're not willing to take any chances. Are other school districts following that line of thinking? A threat comes in, better safe than sorry?
You know, that's interesting because we saw it in many school districts across the country, from California to Texas, Florida, New York, and they all handled it very differently. Some dismissing them as a hoax, others shutting down schools, some coming under criticism for whatever decision they made. We asked the superintendent today, did that play a factor in his decision making? He said no. He said he looked at this one individually and said, you know, is this something that, am I putting students in harm's way if I don't take this seriously today? And that's the reason they decided to shut down schools. He also said, you know, in light of what's happened, we asked him this, they haven't received a threat like this here in 10 years. So when they do receive one, it's something they take very seriously, Jake.
Of course, every 4 years ago, Nashua, New Hampshire, and every town in New Hampshire gets a lot of visitors because of presidential contests, the New Hampshire primary, first in the nation. Does that spotlight, does that make the area more sensitive to such threats?
It's certainly more high profile, right? You know, just today, Jake, you have 3 presidential Republican candidates visiting the state of New Hampshire. You have John Kasich here, Marco Rubio, and Ben Carson, none of them in Nashua, but in the state of New Hampshire. And so this is a place that there are a lot of eyeballs, a lot of people watching here, also a lot of gatherings, a lot of people meet in meeting places in this state. Of course, that makes this a more high profile place right now, Jake.
All right, Sara Ganim in Nashua, New Hampshire. Thanks so much.